to work in a group and to socialize. I mean, this is how our generation has been brought up, right? But yeah, actually I want to hear some input from you. I hope you're not sleeping again. I hear we have only 10 minutes left, so a little input would be awesome.
Hi. Okay, this is on. You've talked about similarities between different hackerspaces around the world, but also lots of differences. Some come from people with a fair amount of cash renting a space. Others are starting from a squad, really. So I'm wondering is, when we are building this movement, how do we manage those differences?
Well, every hackerspace is going to start off with a different group of people, and those group of people are going to create a space that they want to be a part of. So at Noisebridge, there were people who were dirt poor, and there were people who had high-paying Silicon Valley, I keep making that mistake, jobs. And so people shared with a lot of course, enthusiasm, but also working on stuff as they had time if they weren't employed, and helping with cash and maybe also with their time if they were. San Francisco is a really expensive place for rent, and we decided to rent a place. Squatting wasn't really an option. We just put out the word, and we got enough money to rent the space. Other places start in a squat, and they do fine. You know, so it's different for every different group. But the main thing is that the group of people who started, or the person, if that's the case, starts by wanting to create a group that they want to be a part of, and everything grows from that.
I walked in a bit later, so it might have been mentioned already. I wondered what kind of legal form do you use in the hackerspace to, I don't know, manage a property or whatever?
So as I pointed this out before, we don't actually apply some sort of a cookbook on every hackerspace that comes up. Like, we had a lot of comments or questions, especially from US hackerspaces, that had to do with legal structures. And apparently, there's always one hackerspace around the world who has gone through all these problems and issues already. And so we interconnect them. Like, for instance, at PS1, Pumping Station 1, I think we have our second only lawyer that is highly influential in building this hackerspace. So she basically solves all the illegal issues for the US. Does this answer the question? It's not that we apply one specific idea on everything. It's more of we're trying to share knowledge locally as well as globally as it applies.
And one of the things with the patterns is that this is what has worked and what has not worked with other groups in the past. It doesn't mean that what will and will not work for your group. So there are hackerspaces in the US that are for-profit entities, like New York City Resistor, and then there are ones that are non-profit, like Noisebridge, and there's so many different ways that you can legally organize yourself, or you can just be totally anarchist and see what happens.
You guys have talked a lot about how hackerspaces are sort of inherently political, even though people in them don't necessarily describe themselves as political. So I'm just wondering if you could tell us what the politics of hackerspaces are exactly.
I would say it's about including people, or at least trying not to exclude people. It's about doing something, as I said, that falls outside the economic sphere, doing something because you are intrinsically motivated and not extrinsically, like through money or other interesting collective hallucination tokens. And basically it's about living a future that goes beyond the rat race of what we call globalized capitalism.
If I could add something to that. So I think there is a huge inherent difference between politics as we describe them externally and internally, what Jens just described is definitely the internal politics of how hackerspaces work, I guess. But your question implied something very interesting. You were pointing out that, as I mentioned before, members would describe that they are not political. What I meant, or what they meant, but did not say specifically, was they, in the movement of hackerspaces, in their hackerspace, basically the hackerspace is not a political institution. There are no political motives communicated by a hackerspace as to not exclude people, right? However, I really believe that all these people that go to a hackerspace, that want to rethink things, that want to disassemble things in their mind as well as with their hands, that they do have political views. And they apparently don't see how they can contribute these to the hackerspace without, creating a rule that our hackerspace is left wing. How should I make this?
Yeah. There's an excellent book by Stephen Levy called Hackers, Heroes of the Computer Revolution. And throughout the book, he works on a set of rules that he calls the hacker ethics. One of that point is question authority. He found that to be a common point among hackers. It doesn't say, fight the man and do riots in the streets. It's just question authority, think for yourself. And I think, if you look at different hackerspaces, it really holds true. There actually, I would say, is not really a place for people who are deeply authoritarian in a hackerspace. And for me, right-wing authoritarians and left-wing authoritarians are as much as a turn-off. And I would just rather be with open-minded people. And that is also one of the elements of politics of hackerspaces.
Yeah, and as I see it, the personal is political when it's truly personal. If you are doing what you truly love to do, you are changing yourself, and in so doing, changing the world around you. If there's spaces like hackerspaces where people can come together and learn and enjoy learning and learn to become more of who they are and spread that enthusiasm, they are making their lives cooler day by day. And what are each of our lives, if we do that, what are our lives going to be like after a while? And if we share that with others and more people start doing that, what is the world going to be like after just a year or 2 or 3? This is a political act as I see it, because we are changing the world by what we're doing. And how we change the world isn't according to political parties, it's according to who we are, who we want to be, what we want to see ourselves and the world become. As I see it, that's a political act. If you don't see it that way, then I don't care. Just make your life better, and if you make the world around you better, fucking cool.
I think the way to do this is also, even if you have this feeling about how you would shape the world around you in a hackerspace, as we pointed out, these are physical spaces. This is your third space. A lot of people don't take these thoughts outside. So they come to a hackerspace, they live in their little world there. It's really comfy and snuggly and everything, like everyone's of the same mindset. And then you walk outside into the mainstream culture, and apparently nobody is on this level of, experience, knowledge, however you want to point it out. This is probably a very elitist view, I'm sorry. But what you want to do is communicate this also to the outside, to people that are not in any way involved in technologies and hackerspaces, in whatever you call it. And by communicating this, only then outside, you will shape the world of tomorrow.
So that was politics, but you went into what I was going to comment about as well, which is culture. I'm kind of more of a technical person myself, and to me it's surprising that a lot of this is kind of hard to put your finger on what it is, but it seems to be culture in some way. I mean, just a personal anecdote, when I